mukallaf is obligated to embrace Islam, meaning immediately, and follow its teachings. He or she is also obligated to perform all the obligations and avoid all the sins. Now, after that person, of course, becomes Muslim, even if they fell short in doing all their obligations, they're still regarded as a Muslim. And we do not tell the person who wants to become Muslim, we don't tell him, before you become Muslim, you need to leave out all of these un-Islamic practices. We tell him, become a Muslim, inshallah, then you work on yourself. But the most important thing is having the proper belief. The most important thing is having the proper belief. So you don't tell him, okay, well, I know you got a girlfriend, you need to get rid of your girlfriend. I know you eat pork, you need to stop eating pork. Oh, I know you do this and you do that, and you need to. No, it's not a requirement. It's to become a Muslim to stop doing those things. It is a religious obligation to stop doing them indeed, but it's not a condition to stop doing those things before one can enter Islam. Because how many Muslims don't commit any sins at all? Very, 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 very few. So you don't tell, what are you going to say, all the other Muslims, they have to stop all of their sins before they can be Muslim? They're already Muslim for us. But anyway, even if the Muslim indulges in a lot of sins, he is still a Muslim. Unless, what's the rule? He or she claims that their sins are halal. Then this becomes blasphemy. Even if he doesn't do the sin, if he says that sin of that person is halal, like the one who's drinking alcohol, says, oh, he drinks only on the weekend, this is okay in Islam. The one who said that, even if he doesn't drink, but saying drinking alcohol is allowed, is itself what? Blasphemy. That's the rule. So when a person wants to become Muslim, you encourage them by what? Or let's say if they're curious about Islam, let's say it that way. If he wants to become Muslim, immediately you give him the Shahada. You don't tell him, go home and think about it. You don't tell him, let me get some witnesses, come to the mosque on Friday. He says, rescue me from blasphemy. That's what he's saying. I want to become a Muslim. What's the meaning? You can interpret it, translate it as rescue me from blasphemy. I don't know how to get, I'm trapped in this state. I don't know how to get out of it. You immediately give him the Shahada. You immediately just repeat after me, no one is God but Allah. Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's it. So don't make it into this long, drawn-out process. And again, if somebody's curious about Islam, and you see that they're interested, you don't tell them, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't. You're not lying, you're not trying to hide the religion, but for all of us, we are all here converts, alhamdulillah, that you become Muslim, and then you what? You learn and you work on what? Bettering yourself. Inshallah, in time, a lot of your bad habits will just fall off. Yeah. No, you may still have a struggle on other things, but in general, that's how it happens. So don't let these people twist things. So the accountable person, let's break this down. The mumayyiz, you'll hear this term come up in the lessons. This is the child who has reached the age of mental discrimination. Nah. Which happens around when? About the age of 7. Which is approximately the age of 7. So this is the age when you tell the child to pray. He's not accountable yet, but he's at the age where he can understand. Like if you have a conversation, you ask him how many days in a week, he understands there are 7 days in a week. He's not just repeating it from memory. He knows. He understands there's a Monday and a Tuesday and like that. So this child, mental discrimination is not the same as being what? Mukallaf. Yeah. Is that clear? So this stage, mumayyiz, usually comes about 7. It can happen a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I heard something about like 6.5.
Yeah. Because also 7, and we're talking about lunar years, which is about 6.5. But it may happen even before that. The child may be 6, and you can talk to him, and you see you can have a conversation with. He's a clever kid. So he's not accountable. At this stage, the child is not accountable. Okay? So now let's go to mukallaf. We said, what are the 3 conditions? Sane, pubescent,
heard the basic message,
and heard the call to Islam. So sane is straightforward, has function of the mind. And we're not talking about like a person who's a little slow. You know, some people are slow. We're not talking about like that. He's not the sharpest guy. No, but he can understand. He knows like, okay, I'm sitting in my chair, but you have the person who's crazy. He doesn't understand. Or severely retarded. He doesn't understand. You cannot have a what conversation with him. He doesn't understand. So saying is clear. Pubescent, what did we say? How many conditions are there for pubescence? This is, in Arabic is called baligh. This is the other age. Baligh. So you have mumayyiz, which happens around 7 lunar years of age. Baligh, puberty, happens for the man, the male. He sees what?
The mani.
The mani, which would be the discharge of the sexual fluid. Or if he did not have that,
15 lunar years.
15 lunar years. This is in the Shafi'i school.
Oh, it's different in different schools.
I know there is some difference. So we're just sticking here. We're not going to go into it.
Okay.
So 15 lunar years. He sees his mani, or whichever comes first. So if he saw his mani at say 12, now he became accountable. Now if he reaches 15 lunar years, then he becomes accountable. Then he never saw his mani, then he becomes accountable. And just to know, because we deal with some of the opponents of Islam, usually the people who are from the hot climates, they mature earlier than the people from the cold climates. You even see it with the babies. The black babies, they come out, they have full head of hair, right?
Yeah.
White babies, they come out, usually they don't.
Bald.
Yeah, well, yeah. So the people from different climates, they are different. It's not like these so-called PC people. So people are different. Now for the female, this is for the male. For the female, these two apply, but there was a third one. What was the third one? She has our menarche. What is her menarche?
Is that menses?
The first menses. So whatever comes first. So the male, he only has these two. The female, she has, maybe she saw like the sexual fluid came out, for example, then she will become pubescent. But usually I think the menarche comes first. And now they say the girls are having it earlier and earlier. Yeah, it's maybe all the foods, the hormones and stuff.
Yeah.
That now they say about 10 or 11. Now keep in mind the way, this comes back to what we were saying earlier, how traditionally the Muslims raised their children. So they did not raise them to be children until they're 20. You follow? Now they had some scientific study there, it's going circulating, saying that a person doesn't become mature until 30.
Well,
in certain ways, but not like he doesn't reach his peak until like about 30, mashallah, 33 we learn religiously.
Yeah.
But it does, I mean, Islamically, when the person becomes pubescent, they are accountable. So if you're raising your child, you're not raising him go play and have a good time until you're 21 or 18.
Yeah.
No, you're preparing that boy, he's 9 years old, and saying, dude, maybe in the next 2-3 years, you're going to wake up one morning and you're going to be what?
A man.
Oh, you're going to be a man. You're going to be accountable. So if you sin at 13, that's on your neck.
Right.
Sin, any sin, it's on your neck at 13. Here they're telling the guy at 13, 14, go get a girlfriend, or guy maybe tell him go get a boyfriend nowadays, right? So they're encouraging these young people to what? Just to become addicted to sin.
Yeah, to the flesh.
Go to jail, get out of jail.
Huh?
You can go to jail, you won't have to do much time.
Yeah, even criminal activity. Yeah. So Islamically, this is way out of the league of the way the Muslim should think. Mashallah. Okay, so now we define what? The mukallaf, we mentioned sane, pubescent, and the last condition was what?
The call to Islam.
Heard the call to Islam.
Heard the basic message of it.
Basic message. And then this will lead into the next section. How much time say you thought of?
17 minutes on the camera.
Okay, good. That's good. That's why I went to. So this is important because now we'll deal with the issue of salvific exclusivity, to use that phrase. So heard the call to Islam. Yeah, it's a nice phrase.
Yeah.
It's not I didn't come up with it. Mashallah. Heard the call to Islam. And we said, in what? A language
Did you understand?
they understand. Okay? Heard the call to Islam. This is the third condition. This is condition number 3. First one was what? Sanity. Number 2 was what? Pubescence. And number 3 is what? Heard the call to Islam. The basic call. Not like I said, not the way we gave out the whole lesson and this is you tell them this and this is the refutation. They heard no one is God but Allah. Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. For example, for us English speakers. Now let's mention something here, just to give you the proofs here from the Quran and from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah Ta'ala revealed, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. This is Al-Isra 15. Surah Al-Isra, stretch and then you chop it. 15. Allah does not punish a people, meaning in the hereafter, unless He sends a messenger. This is Al-Isra 15. Remember that proof. This is important. And it doesn't mean that a messenger, a living messenger, had to reach you personally, but meaning the message of that prophet or messenger. Doesn't mean that a prophet had to reach you personally. So when you see, why do we say this? Why do we see? It's all in the scholars. They did the work.
Yeah.
It's not like us. We're figuring this out and trying to figure out what are the no. The scholars.
It's amazing that some of those prophets only had like 10 followers.
Allah.
Like the other one time.
Allah.
That's amazing though, brother. Since you mentioned that about how prophets teach the people for years, and he ended up with 7 believers.
Allah.
Like Noah teach for what 950 years.
I know hundreds and hundreds of years, like around that, yeah.
I think 950 something. 950 years. He ended up with just 70 or 80 believers. He got one believer every 10 years.
100 years.
Yeah,
10 years.
Every 10 years, I think.
Yeah, 10.
Every 10 years, he got one believer.
And there's nothing about him. He's among the greatest of the prophets.
One of the great prophets.
But that's why we're saying most of the people, they don't. Well, why we're talking about this topic, mention a little detail, because you have these frauds out there who claim to be Sunni, and they say that you cannot call the mass of the people, like for example in the U.S., you cannot call them kafir. This is a kafir. We'll have to clarify this in a minute. The kafir is a person not a Muslim. But then they try to play, well, they're not really accountable, so you can't call them kafir. This is not the accountability we'll mention. It's not details. Most of the people are, Allah Ta'ala did not make them care to know the truth about God. That's Allah guides whomever He wills. That's what it boils down to. So they don't explain it in this way, and they leave the people confused. Okay, so. So if you can cut that off, that would be good because it's going to be very loud on the camera.
I know they wake you up.
Allah. Allah. طيب. Let's continue, inshallah. So this is a proof about what? That if a people did not receive a prophet, they are not accountable. Like for example, the people living down in the Amazon jungle. Presumably, they never heard about what? Islam. So those people would not be what? Accountable. Okay? The message did not reach them. Now let's mention from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I'm not going to write out the whole hadith because it's not long, but it's a little long for this lesson.
But Ali,
Now,
can we say Like for most of the slaves in America, most of them didn't hear it.
Probably, absolutely. I mean, there were a lot of Muslims, but the ones who weren't, and some of them that heard it in Africa, they would have heard it.
Yeah.
But the ones that were here and they were born here,
Yeah.
and Allah knows it does, because they were very, almost everything. They didn't know anything
they couldn't
outside.
read.
They didn't know about the life outside the plantation. Okay, there's a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, "رفع القلم عن ثلاثة عن النائم حتى يستيقظ وعن الصبي حتى يحتمل وعن المجنون حتى يعقل," which means, and you just write these 3 points down, that the pen, or you can write it, the pen of the angels that record the deeds, not the pen, the first pen, the upper pen.
Oh.
No, the pen of the angels that write the deeds. The pen is lifted for 3. And then you will just mention who those 3 are. The sleeping, this is what you just need to copy, I guess. You can say the pen is lifted off of, and you can just write these. The sleeping, the child, and the third one was the insane. The pen is lifted off of 3. The sleeping, the child, and the insane. Meaning that they're not accountable. So if you're asleep and the person was sleepwalking and he did something haram in his sleep, really he's not
Okay.
accountable. The child is not
Okay.
accountable. Because the Prophet said in the hadith, the sleeping until he wakes up. The child until he becomes baligh, until he becomes pubescent. And the insane until he regains his sanity, if he regains his sanity. So this hadith tells us these are the 3 people that they are not. So if you combine this with the verse, then you see the accountable person, right? The verse mentioned what? Having received the message of Islam. These 2 are what? Are in the same category in essence. They don't have the sleeping person, and the insane don't have their what? Mind. And then there's what?
Child.
The child. Like what we mentioned. You follow? The verse mentioned what? The person who heard the call to Islam. He's not accountable unless he what? Hears the call to Islam. These 2 mention having your what? Mind. And then also what? The child. So we're not like the Christian tradition. We don't say the child was born in sin. Say the child has no sins until they become accountable.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but they do. If the child does good deeds for the sake of Allah, they get the reward. So you ask the children, make dua for me, because they have no sins.
No sin.
They have no sins. Okay, inshallah, we'll take a break. بإذن الله تعالى. والحمد لله وصلى الله على رسول الله.